today we've got 4 key stakeholders with us to discuss soccer, esports, and the importance of partnerships in building the FIFA ecosystem. All the way at the end, we have Brent Koenig, who is the commissioner of the EA FIFA title. We have James Ruth, Senior Director of Properties at MLS, who oversees, amongst other things, eMLS. The MLS is FIFA League. We have Stephen Roberts, who is Global VP of Competitive Gaming for PlayStation, and Ron Reingold, who is Global Strategy and Partnerships for Twitch. And I can hear myself feedback.
Can you turn your interpreter off, please?
My interpreter. Put it over here. Okay, so there's a long history of partnerships between all of these companies on stage. EA launched the FIFA title in 1993 as FIFA International Soccer, and the game first became available for sale on PlayStation for FIFA 96. When, interesting fact, Frank de Boer was actually on the cover, Atlanta United's coach. Nice tie-in. And MLS entered the fray and was in the game since FIFA 2000. And the game now has a staggering 300 million users across all platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. From a competitive perspective, the first International World Cup was in 2004. With the complete competitive ecosystem built out by EA in 2016. Last year's tournament actually was viewed a total of 750 million minutes across platforms, a lot of them on Twitch. And this year's prize money will actually total $3 million in the global series. However, interestingly, which is why one of the reasons we're here within the gaming space, the FIFA title is unique because in the games publishing world, most of the tier 1 titles, whether it's League of Legends, Call of Duty, all of the IP is owned by the games publisher, which obviously is not the case with the FIFA title. It's essentially one giant partnership between EA, FIFA, Federation, leagues, teams, and obviously endemic partners. So we have a very unique situation where it's every stakeholder's best interest to work together to grow both the casual and the competitive side of the game. Brent, after my initial spiel, FIFA is the 5th best-selling franchise of all time. Exceeds sales of the likes of League of Legends, CSGO, Call of Duty. But although we're seeing 20,000 people filling stadiums and arenas for the likes of League of Legends, at the moment, we're still not seeing that with FIFA. Before we jump into the question, can we actually show that first video, please, of a little bit of the reel of the preview of the competitive season, please?
Crown this man a champion. Yes, he is! MS Tassari, and the Saudi Arabian has found his way back on top. He's a hero in London! Oh, Alba, this is the best of him. Tassino! And Maestro is rolling. This man right here is on fire right now. New York City, Chris. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time!
So, as the commissioner of the FIFA title, can you let us kind of talk to us about how critical partnerships are for you scaling the competitive FIFA ecosystem?
Absolutely. First off, thank you. Great intro. I felt like Tiger Woods on the box there.
Thank you.
Make me feel special. You know, the success of League of Legends, the success of anything going through Valve, the stuff that Activision Blizzard has done, is really admirable. And for being so new as a sport, this kind of concept of esports really has been put on the backbone of the publisher. So many different groups, need the infrastructure to help, build this up. And on PC, it's very easy. The install bases are massive. It's really easy to click a button and get a game download. FIFA's different for a lot of different reasons, but one is the game was built on partnership. It's built on, we don't talk about FIFA necessarily being a video game. We talk about it being a platform. And we're inherently weaved into the fabric of football. Depending on how old you are, you say FIFA, do you think of Zurich? Or do you think of the game? And I think we're in a unique position, and that's really the premise is we're built on a platform. And so some partners from 2000 on, like Major League Soccer, others, for longer and shorter periods. We just announced this week, a relationship with CONMEBOL, right? Didn't have that a while back. Didn't have Champions League a while back. Didn't have exclusivity across the board. So when we start talking about the importance of partnership, it's actually the most important thing aside from actual users is the partnership. And that's why we're successful, I think, as a game. That's why we're successful as an esport. And that's why, groups like Twitch, Sony, Major League Soccer, it's why it makes sense, is because we're kind of fishing where the fish are on the back of a really smart infrastructure. And we know we can't do that alone. And I think that's been really the kind of catalyst to our success is just knowing we're not in it alone. And the ramp up for us has been relatively short. We look at Riot Games, it's taken them a long time to get to where they were. The original, look at Dota 2, which is one of the biggest esports event, it's the biggest esports event in the world, with tens of millions of dollars in prizing and tens of thousands of fans. That started in a conference room that was a lot, a lot less nice than this room right here, and that's the first eNational was born in a conference room. And so, I always, there's a lot of. Hopefully there's not too many data analytics people here, but this is going to be $1 billion industry. We can't wait till it's a $2 billion industry. Oh my God, the $3 billion industry of esports. It's like hang on. It takes time to develop and grow, and I think we have the luxury of that because we do have great partners. And so I think, long-winded answer of saying the bedrock of FIFA is built on fantastic partnerships.
So one of those partnerships obviously has been MLS. Very innovative with EA. I think an interesting thing, 2014, MLS actually revealed their new branding within the game. It was the first time anyone saw the new league marks was actually within the game. And today, James and the team have done an amazing job building the EMLS as kind of one of the premier league partners in the world. And actually, several MLS teams have had an EMLS player and a FIFA professional sign before they've even actually really kicked a ball. So Austin has a player, and Nashville has a player already, and they haven't kicked a ball yet. So from an MLS perspective, how's FIFA, the esports side of FIFA, changed the way the league looks at building fandom? And also, how's the league leveraging esports to create new fans and further engage that existing fan and create another touch point between the fan and the team and the league?
Yeah. Well, I think first things first, we've had a long relationship with EA, and I think we've always known that gaming was a core component of how we engage our existing fans, but also how we create new fans. We know it's a really, really strong channel for us. And we started meeting with Brent, three and a half years ago, a little bit longer ago than that, about just kind of the idea and the concept of building a competitive gaming segment to our strategy within gaming, which is pretty multifaceted. You talked about launching the new MLS crest in the game. We also partnered with EA to have Alex Hunter, the role-playing mode, go through the LA Galaxy. So we've got a long-standing history of doing really great things with them. And when we started to talk about competitive gaming, we took a step back and actually did a little bit more analysis in terms of the role of gaming and in terms of how it really turns the engine for our fans. And looking at it, it put us in a really great position to double down and think about competitive gaming as another avenue as part of our overarching gaming strategy. And now at this point, we're 2 years in. We're rounding the corner for our third season. And we're really, really excited about what we've seen. And actually, in this last point, we took a step back again to do a bunch of fan surveying and data and try and figure out, okay, what's EMLS doing to help us grow fans? Because I think that's the thesis statement that every club and every league is getting into esports, and at least in the traditional soccer realm, with the idea that if I'm more present in gaming, I can do more for my brand and ultimately grow our core brand and business. And what we saw is, that's happening. eMLS is doing two major things, especially as it relates to the larger gaming and esports audience, even outside of soccer fans. And one, it's changing perception. It's making those fans or those potential fans think that MLS is progressive and innovative, which is super compelling to see. It's at the core of where we want our brand to be as we position ourselves to be a league of today and tomorrow. But the real kind of, important piece is that it's actually changing interest in the league. So it's not only perception, but people are becoming more interested in MLS through the channel of eMLS. And listen, it's not every esports fan out there, but there's a core segment that we're seeing the shift in, and it's making us really excited about what the future of eMLS and our larger esports landscape looks like.
So I'm going to come on and ask Stephen a question in a second, but I think one of the interesting things is there was a panel yesterday, and you obviously had you had La Liga on the panel, you had MLS on the panel, you had USL on the panel, and obviously they all talk about building their fan bases abroad, and how do we crack the US market, and how can we get people to sign up for subscription clubs, and how data, where's that all coming from, right? And I think leading over as well into to Stephen's perspective, to me, from a FIFA perspective, you've got 300 million people playing, however many, I don't know how many people are playing on PlayStation, every day, all 300 million are on PlayStation. And there is all this data about what club you're selecting, what players you're playing with, what kit you're putting on the player, even what you're calling your team. So how, I think both from a data perspective, how can clubs, and I know EA has 400 licenses for FIFA?
Yeah, over.
Right, so what happens to all that data? And I guess how can clubs really benefit from that, taking a step aside from the competitive perspective, looking at how MLS said, look, we've got to lean in, right? We've got X amount of people playing with Red Bull every day. What happens to that data, and how can the clubs actually, or federations or leagues actually really lean into that more?
I mean, first and foremost, I think the topic of data can be sensitive because exploiting data, people see as bad. People, myself included. Exploiting data, bad. Learning from data, good.
Right.
And so it's a funky balance when you add data with transactional history, because we are not a football federation, right? We are a public company that makes, commercial investment so that we can, have profit. What's interesting about that is our data is really smart. We have very, very smart data, and we partner with Sony, we partner with Twitch, we partner with Major League Soccer so that we can make our fan base, football fan base, more educated and give them content that they want and they desire. I mean, we link Twitch, which is a viewership platform, with our game back end so that we can reward people for watching. Just like we reward a Sony PlayStation FIFA player by offering them a tournament mode, which Stephen can talk about. We also partner with James and team to make sure that I'll use Portland Timbers. So Portland Timber, my team, by the way, any Timbers fans?
No clapping on that one.
Jeez, it's a tough crowd. But we leverage that to make sure that the Timbers are getting enough information. But that sits with the league. The league really feels it's important for the Timbers to be just as equitable and important as a New York or LA team. And so I think data becomes really, really important, but it needs to be used in the right way. And we have found that it's around education, rewarding, customizing content, as opposed to just the kind of the buzzword of like data. Right? And Stephen, you can.
It's what Brent says is really about engagement, right? And whether it's about a certain club where gaming can create more engagement in the club or in a game or in a league, or on Twitch. It's how we're certainly using competitive gaming, all of us to a certain extent are aligned. It's how do we create greater engagement across the board?
So
and that's really what
with that, you guys have recently launched your PlayStation PS4 tournaments platform, which is, we could call it a casual competitive platform, which actually, could you hit the second video, please? Wanted to make sure that. So the PlayStation 4 tournaments platform is the ability for people to match up globally online and play in tournaments across multiple levels, right?
Yeah, we have over 100 million active PlayStation PS4 out there. So we use our partnerships, specifically with FIFA, to tell the story, to get more people engaged and to get more people to compete at any level. So, the ability to talk about some of the best players in the world, whether it's on a global basis or in EMLS, enables us to do what traditional sports does, to tell stories, to inspire the tens of millions of players that either would love to play at that level or just enjoy to be in the same club playing the same game. And so that's how we fully use our partnership with FIFA, is to do that. And then we launch this amateur product, basically, and we do it across multiple games, but we just launched it with FIFA this week. And we have tens of thousands of players competing around the world. So it provides this link of what we're talking about, of how do we tell these stories to create greater engagements among us. And, together we amplify everything that's being done. It's not really a one single direction. It's all amplified together.
Yep. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to be said about this platform and the tournament opportunity, though, because as the FIFA sort of engagement infrastructure starts to build, we've got FIFA Esports at the top, and then we've got casual gaming at the base. And something like this provides something in the middle where, you have a lot of people that want to play competitively, but they're going to shy away from the ultimate tournament to become the LEFC player. And we still want to create avenues for those players to engage with their team, have a really good time, be part of the club, and not feel like they have to be the best player in Los Angeles to do that, right?
So moving on to Ron as well. So Twitch, if anyone doesn't know what Twitch is the world's largest live streaming platform. A percentage of it, 90+% is gaming content. But of that 90% of all of the content that's on there, only around 15% is actually esports.
That's right.
So esports is the competitive gaming. Obviously, everyone's heard of the talent like Ninja, unfortunately no longer on the platform, but you've heard of these huge talent. They're not professional gamers, they're streamers, and there is a difference between the two of them, and there is very much a difference between casual competitive and ultra competitive. Majority of the live FIFA events, obviously EA has a partnership with Twitch, and most of that content is broadcast on Twitch. And Twitch at 120 million unique viewers every month.
We're up to about 140 now, actually.
140. This is an old write-up.
Ads are writing this
for the data people.
So, with the global reach of teams, leagues, and federations, the popularity of the FIFA title, from a storytelling perspective, we keep going back to that. So, how's Twitch actually helping tell that narrative for both gamers and non-gamers on the platform?
Sure. So another number to throw in there just for a little bit more perspective. of course, the 140 million monthly unique viewers, we also are seeing around 900 million monthly hours watched. And at any given moment on Twitch, and this is one of the stats we're proud of, is any given moment around the world, 24/7, there's 1 million people on the platform. When it comes to the partnerships that everyone's talking about up on stage here, Twitch is really a suite of services and tools for creators, whether they're official leagues, whether it's the eMLS, what FIFA's doing. It's a suite of services and tools where an individual who is competing as a part of the PlayStation tournament can go on and stream and interact with their community, and then they can go all the way up to the top through very highly produced, polished, beautifully executed events and broadcasts. So we like to be a home for all of that. I think you touched on an interesting point, Brent, there when it comes to drops and just the interaction and the rich community that you can find on Twitch. We are very much lean forward form of entertainment. There's chat going on. You can link your account. The individuals who are broadcasting do a great job of interacting with that community. So we see it as the future of kind of multiplayer entertainment. And I think as it pertains to the biggest sport in the world, football, it's very important for Twitch to have a strong and defined strategy in interacting with these fans. Now, FIFA is an interesting title because it is one of the most played titles in the world. And, the viewership for FIFA and the way that the FIFA competitive ecosystem is set up is a little bit unique compared to more quote-unquote traditional esports. So I think it's a challenge that we're all looking to develop and really kind of grow the bridge between traditional football fans who happen to be gamers and core viewers on Twitch. So from a content perspective as well, you're seeing the likes of a Man City that recently teamed up with FaZe Clan. And then you're also seeing James. So interestingly, Twitch was used this year for the All-Star Skills Challenge. So from a Twitch perspective, how much are they looking at moving into kind of taking that audience that's grown up on the platform and now moving into that more traditional linear space, right? Where we talk about esports and the biggest selling point, especially when you're speaking with brands, is our consumer is a 18 to 29-year-old cord cutter, right? So how much is Twitch looking now at moving into more of that, the linear broadcast side of things with the likes, and James can obviously talk to it too, with from their experience with All-Star Challenge and other properties? Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first year we've done something like that. We've got a whole group called New Verticals, which is out there talking to leagues, talking to more traditional sporting organizations, and talking to the Bob Ross estate to get Bob Ross streamed 24/7. So there's an interesting crossover as it pertains to the MLS, though. And I say this all the time because James is a good friend, and I think he's doing an amazing job over at the MLS. But what the eMLS has done is really it's a very dynamic offering in the esports world. There's regular cadence, which is important for our viewers. There is an established kind of ecosystem there that comes from MLS fans, and I think the natural next step for us was to start broadcasting extensions of what the MLS content offering is, and that was a direction for us for All-Star Challenge.
Yeah, and I think in our experience on broadcasting eMLS on Twitch, we always knew the Twitch platform, but seeing it really perform as an operator of an event and seeing what that could do was really kind of an eye-opener for us in terms of the flexibility of the platform and how it's really kind of a look into how I think a lot of sports fans are going to want to consume their content going forward, the kind of quasi-gamification, the opportunity to not just have something broadcasted to you, but to be part of a conversation. Right. And I think Twitch has done a better job at that than anybody else in terms of turning live content into a community event.
So I think just jumping back to what we were talking about we mentioned linked accounts. So what that's really done is actually enabled this user experience, which I think traditionally has been obviously more clunky, right? You can log in, you have your PSN, you're logged into Twitch. Let's talk through a little bit that ecosystem, and I know we touched on it a little bit before, but growing that ecosystem specifically for how can teams, leagues, and federations kind of jump in a little bit with with that linked account, whether that's on Twitch, whether that's through their PSN. Like, how can they start getting involved a little bit more from linking some of that data?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the highest level, the fans who are taking the extra step to link, to associate, to interact with the content, those are your super fans, right? And those are the people you want to be speaking with. You've got them all in one place. It's a very hard thing to do in this world. So you've got them for quite some time. We have a long viewing average per user. So you've got them watching Twitch, you've got them watching amazing content, and these are the people who you want to be speaking to.
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing is, like, the problems aren't necessarily different to sport. I'm lucky to travel around the world and meet with every single league, clubs around the world, federations around the world, the Olympic Committee. Everybody's trying to connect experiences and come up with the next, thing that's going to, like, link them all together. There's probably a lot of people in this room that are representing an app or representing a piece of software, something that helps drive engagement. We kind of are in gaming. We've already done that, and I think it's the reverse problem that a traditional football club would have, which is they're trying to find the things to create the connections where the four of us kind of represent the thing that's already connected. It's kind of the inverse, right? And so we talk a little bit about, like, ticket sales and butts and seats. It's like, I actually don't really need butts and seats, because right now I got 1 million people watching FIFA on Twitch. I've got, however many hundreds of thousands participating in EMLS. We've got 100 million active users, of which probably 30%, 40% have, and probably 100% have either bought or played FIFA at some point. Like, we don't really have a connectivity problem. We have a, content and accessibility and an engagement and an awareness problem. And so League of Legends, or, a traditional, I love that, by the way, traditional esport that's 10 years old. That's not our problem. Our problem is not necessarily having the biggest and best viewership. We want the right people watching, we want the right people playing, and we want to be able to give them and serve them content and experiences that are really meaningful and valuable, because then they're going to come back. It's just like a hot dog or a beer in North America means something completely different. I think the panel before was talking about, you can't even get beer and watch football in Europe. So it's like, they're different problems, but they're kind of the inverse. And so why I think FIFA is such an attractive property, and why we've continued to grow and be successful, is we already have the connected network, right? I can activate in any one of our partnerships at any day. I can pick up the phone and call any one of the four of these guys and get access to hundreds of millions of people. It's creating the meaningful experiences at the back end, which is why, like, EMLS is very important. It's why all of our other partners and brands and everybody else is important, because we're just feeding that pipeline. We got the pipeline part covered.
But I think it's what you say is true, but I think there is an analogy with traditional clubs and teams, in the same way as we have 100 million people. That's our stadium, right? That's our arena. Yeah. And how do we, in the same way that someone buys a ticket to a football match, how do they get that person that bought that ticket to buy a drink, to buy a hot dog, to be more engaged on a daily basis, weekly basis, to watch that content? We have that same problem, right? We have the people coming into our arena, and they're there all the time, and you're right, they're connected.
Are you calling me a hot dog?
Not at all. But I think there's an analogy there that can be made with, we're all trying, we're better connected, there's no doubt, but we're all trying to get that connection with that person, so that that person, whether they bought a ticket in to watch a football match and want to buy a hot dog or a drink, or come here and want to buy more DLC or kits or drops on Twitch, right? It's the same thing.
But if anyone saw the announcement yesterday, but TikTok's going into ticket sales for concerts. So
my instant response is, people using TikTok are going to be like, what's a ticket? Why would I go to a football match when I can watch from my bedroom?
Right. But you don't.
I'm not the right answer in the room, but honestly, like.
But from a league perspective, if people could buy tickets through playing FIFA, that would be.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it all back to soccer again, I think that's one of the really unique opportunities that we have here with this kind of partner set, is to make a really kind of seamless ecosystem and environment where there's no barrier to you going and watching the New York Red Bulls in the stadium, and there's no barrier to you watching them on ESPN, Fox, or Univision, and there's no barrier to playing with them on your PlayStation. And it's about how do we learn more about what that experience looks like and how those experiences play together so that we can impact and elevate them. And I think that's what we've tried to do with EMLS and just our larger gaming strategy, is to say, listen, this is a major channel for engagement for our fans. Let's create better connectivity to everything else that we're doing so we can be better positioned for going forward.
There's a new term kind of floating around Silicon Valley right now, which is like technology lubricant, right? So you just saw Honey, which is I
love Honey.
It's crazy. So Honey is like a instant coupon extension with Chrome. It was just purchased for $4 billion cash by PayPal. So like technology lubricant, right? Yeah. Well, James and I talk about this. Like, it's really hard to like just sign up to do something. We talk about it too. The least amount of barriers, the higher the engagement, the quicker and more, which is literally the probably description of Twitch extensions, right? It's like 2-3 clicks, go, and then you're ready to go, and you're ready to consume, and you're ready to be. The more friction you have, that's why things are going to fail, in my opinion. And that's where football needs to grow. That's where all North American sports need to go, is remove the friction, because use the data, use all the tools at your disposal, because people want that, right? I want to be marketed to by the things that I want to be marketed to. Sounds a weird statement, but it's true. Completely true. Yep. That thing holds across across the board.
We've got 8 minutes. I know a couple of the panels haven't really given time for questions. We could talk all day, but I want to make sure if there are any questions, we give them adequate time. So if anyone does have any questions, I think there's one at the back, in the middle, to the right. Right over there.
Hi, thank you. My name's Tony. I'm with America Scores. We're an after-school program that gives free soccer access to thousands of kids at their schools around the country. And our kids love FIFA. They're on Twitch. It was one of our kids who taught me what Twitch was. And on one hand, we're all about healthy activity and getting out and playing the sport and getting away from screens and video games. But on the other hand, for some of our kids, this is the best way to meet them where they are and engage them around the sport, especially in some of our communities and cities in large African-American communities. This was their initial access point for soccer. So have you given any thought to how to take advantage of that engagement amongst young people, but in a responsible way?
I have a pretty boilerplate response that I'm going to steer away from and answer this directly. Absolutely, physical, mental well-being is essential. So kudos to you for the work that you're doing. It absolutely is top of mind for us. There is no magic bullet. The one thing I would say is, unlike any other form of entertainment, video games is bringing down the barriers of connectivity to people. So the concept of mental health and feeling alone is and I'll just be really blunt with this. There is no more hiding in your mom's basement. You poll the players that are playing FIFA, their best friends are from different continents, right? Players learn French so that they can play with their French friends, and they grew up in Seattle, right? So there is a lot of work to be done on how to harness that and make sure it's super healthy. And EA is doing a bunch with partners in entertainment like Twitch, like Sony, others in publishing around just healthy gaming. That is probably the most essential thing that's going to be impacting Gen Z, some of the millennials, as everyone starts to get transition into professional life. Mental health and well-being is really, really important. But there is a stigma around video games that is just a bunch of kids in their basement, and that's just not true.
Yeah, it's not true.
Just foundationally and flat out, it's not true. And so I mean, you guys have built enterprises around this. Like, it's, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way to look at it. I think also I think a lot of people, especially from the soccer space, look at gaming as a little bit competitive to their core product. But I think from our perspective, it gives us relevancy in a global format. And I think for a lot of young kids that maybe aren't super oriented around the sport, it's that entrance point. And that's that entrance point to care for the New York Red Bulls or the Portland Timbers, but it's also that entrance point to go out and play and maybe get on the Portland Timbers Academy. And it gives these kids relevance for how big the soccer ecosystem is and how they plug into it. And I think it's a huge motivating factor for people to extend their knowledge of the sport.
Yeah.
Healthy gaming, as Brent said, healthy gaming is so important. But certainly, especially in the United States, if you're not a star football player by the time you're 12, you're disenfranchised. And so these kids, find gaming, fortunately, to have a social outlet, and as long as they're doing it healthy, and it can be looked upon as a very positive thing because they don't necessarily have the success or an avenue to play, competitively in the sport itself. So it can be looked upon as a compliment, not as a negative thing.
Yeah, and even more acute, and you two are better to talk about, Chris, from New York.
Yeah.
But socially, like physically, yes. But everyone talks about these things. I mean, it's really funny. People talk about them completely separate. Physical health is not as much, or if not more important than mental health. And we see that today across entertainment and the wave of streamers and everything. Mental health is very important, and it goes into toxicity, and there's all these different other angles, but like the work on mental health is, again, one of the most important pivotal things. In entertainment, sports entertainment, and just overall in general, I think there needs to be more that's done around the topic. But I don't know if you guys want to talk about Chris.
Chris is a player for NYCFC. He's one of the best FIFA esports players in the world. He won the E-Champions League earlier in the year, and I think Chris is a great example of somebody who has found his community through esports. And I remember when I first met Chris, he's a really impressive kid. He's a fantastic player. Was a little bit on the shy side. And 2-3 years coming into the esports space, I mean, he's a kingmaker in that community. And he's really finding his personality through FIFA, through the esports scene. And it's awesome to see. And he's really kind of come out through that. It's great.
He actually as well came to the US because of the hurricane in Haiti, right?
Exactly.
And he basically came with no friends and built that community around FIFA. And I think both, mentally, obviously, it's great for him, and even his whole personality has completely changed from the 2-3 years ago we all met him. Is there any more? One right down here. Quick with the draw, with the red tie.
Hi, my name's Joseph Ganzo. I'm with the Football Business Academy based out of Geneva, Switzerland. As an ex-professional gamer myself, one of the reasons I stopped was because of there's a lot of expenses that go into gaming unless you have sponsors. Travel, hotels, accommodation, all those things. But with FIFA itself, it's even worse. I mean, a lot of people might try to disagree, but if you look at the comments on Twitch, Twitter, anywhere you go, a lot of people have stopped playing FIFA because it's pay to play. The pros are getting banned because they're buying players from third-party markets, buying coins from third parties, just to try to compete. And so my question for you is, then on the other hand, you have games like Rocket League, where you buy the game $20 on Steam, and you have all these football clubs like Barcelona, PSG, PSV, Espanyol, and Monaco, who have teams in Rocket League. And these kids obviously don't have a lot of money. They're not having to spend anything to really play the game, and it's more skill-based rather than who has the most money to get the best team. So I just want to know if you think that FIFA at some point may eventually die out, and games like Rocket League, who was just purchased by Epic Games and is a lot more inexpensive to play, might kind of take over as the esport in the soccer realm. You know, it's soccer with cars, but just in that sense, if you think that FIFA could kind of take a dive.
James, you want to take that one? I mean,
Too close for us.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a very complex topic, obviously. Just before coming on stage, we were just probing on how much it costs to just play soccer in America, right? There's a $2,500, academy fee. You've got, 5 kits you got to buy, and the sanctioned shin pads and the whole shebang, right? So just cost in general absolutely is a macro topic that we're working on constantly, right? Our league operations team has made it less important to purchase in-game items to qualify. The top 4 players that qualify in one tournament progress through to the next. That doesn't solve the problem that you're alluding to. But what I will say is, as with anything that's successful, right? FIFA, this isn't private information, but FIFA's a $2.5 billion enterprise, right? Across every single continent with the exception of Antarctica. And because of that, there's an economy that's built up around it. So there has to be protections in place. We've employed a handful of economists, like literal economists, who are currently tweaking, all the different, ways that people play FIFA. And I think it needs to evolve. There's no mistaking that. The way that you play the game needs to evolve. Part of the, we talk about having 400 licenses in the game. Those are really expensive. And unfortunately, we have a desire to play something that's authentic, incredible, and fun and engaging. And so I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It's really, really hard, but it's also really fun to play as your favorite Champions League team, as your favorite Combo Bowl team. And so I don't know what the answer is. It's a great question, but I do know that we're working on it really hard. I think it's something that's top of mind. Again, that goes into mental health as well, because as you increase your investment, increases your stress and strain. So unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer other than we're working on it really hard, and it's not lost on anybody up here, to be honest. We work with Sony really, and Twitch at an executive level to make sure that we're doing the best to be good fosters of people's time and money and all that.
I think we're actually out of time. They haven't kicked us off yet, but I think we are. Thank you very much all for your time. Thank you, gents. Hopefully that was insightful, and we'll hopefully see you next year. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.